That's the name of our show.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Large Glass. I'm Todd.
I'm Terri.
Nice to have you guys. We every week we bring you a new show about art and artists, as most of you know already. Mm-hmm. But
well, by now you should. We're on episode 33.
Yeah, episode 33.
33.
I was scrolling through the webpage that chronicles all the little thumbnails of the episodes, and I was like, oh my gosh.
I know.
It's incredible.
I love it.
So, so we're excited.
Yeah.
We've got a cool show lined up tonight.
We do.
Anything new?
No.
Yeah,
No.
no.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing out there? What are you having to drink tonight? Oh, let's see who's here. We've got Pumpkin Audrey, Ben Hagenbush. Hey, guys. Hey, everyone. Angus Ron. Nice to see you. Gary Palker's here. And I also noticed before that Gary987 followed. Thanks for that follow. That's pretty awesome. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
And we have something to drink tonight.
We do.
Tonight's artist.
We were not lazy.
We actually went out and got alcohol.
Actually went to the store and thought about this and bought some beer.
There's Mom. Hi, Mom. Nice to see you. We got some beer because our artist is from Pennsylvania.
She is.
So tonight we're drinking Troegs Dreamweaver, which is a wheat beer. Really cool brewery in Hershey, Pennsylvania. I watched a little 2-minute segment on who they are and what they're about. And they look awesome. So go check them out. I mean, we're going to try the beer. I think I've had Troegs before. There's John Park. Hi from Half Park.
Ooh.
I'm assuming Jess Park will maybe be joining us, I hope. Gin and tonic with cucumber, Pumpkin Audrey says.
Oh,
that
sweet.
Sounds very spring.
Well, not sweet, but very nice.
Very spring. All right, let's see what we got here.
Refreshing.
You might notice something has changed. What's missing? I'm about to do the ASMR. What's missing? There's no mics. We have no mics.
Right.
So.
Drop the mic. Drop 2 mics.
Yeah, we dropped 2 mics. So, and hopefully we still sound okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully we still sound okay. So, let us know if we don't. But
he did a rig. So
there's Hi from the other half park. We got two. We got both halves of the parks.
All right.
All right. So, we got a little Troegs Dreamweaver wheat beer. And you know what? I should have poured for you first.
So
but
does this mean our days of ASMR are over without those mics?
Absolutely not. Are you ready for this? Now, of course, with a glass of wine, that's going to be a lot better.
Yeah.
The beer never really did the ASMR thing well.
I think it's because of the,
Because of the what? The foam?
No, actually, the size of the lip. I think the narrow bottle helped with the acoustics when it funneled into the bottle.
I think you're right.
Yeah. But when it's like this big wide rim and then it's pouring into something, I mean, I don't know.
Well, it's really heavy too, right?
It is very heavy. Yeah.
So anyway. Wow, One Good King is now following. Thanks for the follow, One Good King.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yes.
All right, so let's toast to episode 33.
33.
And all our followers.
And all of our followers.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Ooh. Oh my gosh, that's...
I hate username 67 says that was fine. Too much ASMR is not a good thing. Yes, that's true.
Why not?
We don't want to lull them
Let's
into
open
a peaceful sleep.
Hey, there's Dave Schmidt. Why not? Why is it not a good thing? I mean, am I going to short circuit? Am I going to get too much stimulation on the brain?
No, well, ASMR is also used to calm people and lull them to sleep. So we don't want to go overboard with these soothing, peaceful sounds. We want to mix it up a bit.
Okay. I'm down with that.
All right.
I'm down with that. It says you're the one who hates hearing saliva when people talk.
Yeah.
Okay, touche. You got me. You got me.
There we go.
I'll take it. So let's see. We've got some news. Should we do some news first?
We can plow into the news.
All right. So I was thinking a lot today about, well, first of all, I was kind of digging into some of the upcoming shows and the current exhibitions that are on right now. And I started noticing something I hadn't realized before, but 3 of the galleries that we are either in contact with regularly or talking to newly or just kind of like getting acquainted with, all have shows up on landscape painting.
They do.
And I was really interested in this. And so I started to look a little bit deeper. And so I did some comparisons between and amongst all of them and thought, all right, well, let's see what we can kind of, pull from this, right? So, the first one that I'm just going to bring up here is a show called Meadow. And Meadow is by Ashley Garrett, and this is at the Gold Scopophilia Gallery in Montclair, New Jersey. So Ashley's paintings, I haven't been able to see them all yet because the show actually opens this week. But in this cover painting and in her artist statement, she talks extensively about some of the details present in the landscape, yet she does abstract upon these things because she really wants to bring a sort of air of how the relationship between the viewer and the landscape is equal to the relationship between the landscape and the viewer. And she doesn't want to sort of let go of some of these notions that things get lost, details get lost. And so I think she kind of works with those in a different kind of way. So I really like this piece, and I'm really interested to see how the rest of the show turns out.
I like how she uses some of the pure colors and doesn't she might mix them up a little bit, but they really navigate your eye through the landscape a little bit with this green and this red and this purple. So yeah, I'm kind of excited to see that show.
And this series of shows progresses from what is essentially more abstract to more realistic, but all the while kind of remaining somewhere in the psychological. So, in our second show that I pulled up, we've got the show that just opened at the Brownstone Art called Far Afield. This is Michelle Mackey's painting show. And these landscapes are
delicious.
They're really nice.
They're really good.
So, we're in love with this show. We are really fortunate to be able to host next Tuesday night on our show. We are actually going to be hosting the reception for this show. So you're actually going to get to meet Michelle Mackey right here on the show and actually participate in a Q&A with her while we look at her work. So that's going to be something I think that's pretty special. But the one thing that's really cool about Michelle Mackey's landscapes, I think that's different other than the vibrant colors and, the way she sort of treats, the play of light is this subtle way in which she bends the traditional kind of indicators of pictorial space, foreground, middle ground, background, that horizon line up there, if you can get really close to it, the sky sort of eats the land. It sort of lives over the top of that. She deals with this kind of push and pull that sort of negates those kind of spaces. And then, in this other piece that we have here, there's like this real strange play between that mountainous rock, and she gets into and I don't want to give too much away about her work because, we're going to be talking to her next week, but she talks a lot about time in her paintings, which I think is a really interesting aspect, and I want to let her talk about that. But again, we've got another landscape that's abstracted in the direction of this kind of psychological play, right? Landscape is the bomb from Memory Vessel. Hi, nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
So yeah, I think Michelle Mackey's show is brilliant. Head over to the Brownstone Art to check that out for sure. You want to go see the exhibition's right there on the website. So you just click a button to enter the website, and you can go through each individual piece right there. It's a brilliant show. So let's see what we've got next here. So then we move on, and we get to this show, which is called Journeys. Now, this is Robert Glisson. And Robert's work sort of also deals with this kind of plein air approach to painting, but then he brings the painting home, and then he starts to really push the sort of emotional side of this through color, through exaggeration, So, and this is at Novato Gallery in Jersey City, New Jersey. So this is also an excellent show. These pieces tend to be a little bit smaller, so they function like these small window portals into those spaces. So whereas some of the other pieces in those other shows, I'm not sure how big Ashley Garrett's work is, but in terms of Michelle Mackey, I noticed that there's a variety.
Yep.
There's a variety, yeah. And so, Glisson, I think, is also another really interesting example of, this kind of play. Now, these shows and the fact that they're on right now, Ben saying so vivid and rich, I agree. And I think one of the reasons 3 landscape shows being totally appropriate right now, and let's just forget about spring, right? Spring, of course, right? Duh, that's one of the things we look for. But obviously we've been locked up for so long. I think we have a new appreciation for outside.
I think so. I think we just want to get out there and bring the outdoors into us if we can.
Yeah. So 3 really great shows that you can go check out if you want to, and certainly check them out online when you get a chance. And certainly join us next week on Tuesday for the Michelle Mackey Far Afield Show. Now, last thing in the news, of course, that I've been plugging every week because it is now fast approaching.
Yes.
Is the Hunt and Art Tour.
That's next week.
It is next week. And so on Friday, April 30th, we will be hosting the Hunt and Art Tour's opening reception at the Hunt and Art Museum, which I am, super excited about, number one. We're going to be in the museum with very few people, and we will have a couple of guests there. We're going to take you through the museum so you can see all the work that is on the tour. Back that up. All the artists that are on the tour will have work in that show. And then from that show, you can decide if you want to go and visit an artist's studio on the following 2 days, May 1 and May 2. Everything is available on the Hunt and Art Tour's website, which you can get to. Also, the Hunt and Art Museum's website has a posting about this up as well. You can go and check that out. But please, that's on a Friday from 7 to 9, which is not our normal time slot. So we'd love it if you joined us for that. I think that's going to be a pretty big event. And now I'm going to stop talking about the news. So do you want to do birthdays?
We can go into the birthdays.
All right, let's do those.
Yes.
Oh, this guy.
This guy.
So our first birthday is today. Is that correct?
It is today. It's the 20th. He was born in 1893.
Yes.
This is Miro. Spanish painter, sculptor, ceramicist. He dabbles in surreal, fauvism, abstract, cubism, all kinds of things mixed up. Beautiful compositions. I know Philadelphia Museum of Art is always having exhibitions on his work.
Do they have a portion of his collection?
I think they might, because I've been there a couple times, and it seems like they always have his paintings
I
there.
remember seeing a bunch there.
Yeah.
And I know that they have an extensive collection of Cy Twombly there. Of course, Duchamp is there. They've got, they have a number of, who's the other person I'm thinking of that they have a number of there, and it's just so perfect.
They have a great collection.
It'll come to me.
One of the quotes I really liked from Moreau, he said, "I try to apply colors like words that shape poems, like notes that shape music." And in this composition, you can kind of see that.
All right.
All right.
All right. Should we go on?
We should.
Oh, what do we have here?
This is Carrie Mae Weems, also born on this date. A little bit younger than Moreau. She was born in 1953. She works in a variety of different mediums: text, fabric, audio, digital. She's probably best known for her kitchen table series, black and white portraitures of everyday life.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And by the way, Amanda Toolan's here and has been commenting. She's loving on the landscapes, talking about the primary colors and not yucky fauvish color.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't say yucky.
No, she's referring to
Oh,
fauvish
okay.
color as yucky. I think she's celebrating Moreau's
Yes.
choices of color.
Okay, I gotcha.
Right?
I misunderstood.
That's all right. So
Okay.
Carrie Mae Weems. So
Yes. And then this is from the kitchen table series here.
right.
So, yeah.
All right.
So it's her birthday today.
Happy birthday, Carrie.
Happy birthday.
Carrie Mae. Moving on.
Moving on.
This
So,
guy.
Yes. On Thursday, the 22nd, we have Richard Diebenkorn. He was born in 1922, American painter and printmaker.
One of my favorite painters, by the way.
He's fantastic. What I love the most about his paintings is the toothiness on his planes of color, the texture. I always felt like you can kind of
The guy knows how to handle
get
paint.
in there. He
Yeah,
really
he
does.
really knows how to handle
really
paint.
does.
There's a really, really nice his decision making about where to be soft and where to not be soft is just it's brilliant. And of course, color. We're not even going to go there because it's obvious. There's nothing I could say that could bring more to that.
Yep. So happy birthday to him.
All right. Oh, and then this guy. We've got great birthdays today.
We do. On Saturday, the 24th, this is Willem de Kooning. He was born in 1904. Dutch-American abstract expressionist artist.
Oh, you want to see a painting?
Married to Elaine.
Yes.
We talked about earlier
We had Elaine de
this
Kooning on
year.
birthdays last month.
Yes, we did. But yeah, he's fantastic as well. So he's on the 24th.
All right. Moving along. Another
along,
Philadelphia
this is
Museum person.
Cy Twombly.
I think I just mentioned him.
Yeah, this is like a big, I feel like springtime is baby time. So babies and artists born all over the place. So on the 25th, which is Sunday, it's Cy Twombly, 1928. He's an American painter, sculptor, photographer. He dabbles in abstract expressionism, neo-expressionism, all that good stuff. So
And last but not least, Monsieur Delacroix.
Delacroix, 1798. He was born on the 26th of April. French Romantic artist. Very dramatic, tumultuous paintings, lots of drama.
Liberty leading the people.
That's right.
I love that painting. That is a beautiful painting.
That
I
is a
actually saw that
beautiful
painting in person.
The lights, and there's some chiaroscuro going on as well there.
Oh, great. Carolyn Thau is here just in time to critique my French. I said something in French and boom, she's like, I'm here.
No, I know. Did you call?
It's Taurus season. That is true.
It is Taurus
Actually,
season.
welcome, Carolyn. We're really happy to
Yes,
see you.
yes,
I'm
we are.
just
We're just
playing around.
teasing.
As soon as I said something in French, I was like, oh, is Carolyn here?
Yes.
All right.
Bingo.
Good.
Yep, and then I think that's pretty much it.
That's it for birthdays today. All right.
There was one other birthday that wasn't in here, but he's probably not as well known. He was on the 23rd. His name is J.M.W. Turner in 1775. Joseph Mallard William Turner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We know him.
You know him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He's.
You're like, I don't want to talk about him.
No, we can talk about him. I
Oh,
just
well.
didn't. You're saying it, and I'm like, I don't have a slide.
No, that's okay that you don't have a slide, but sometimes there's so many people or there's reasons why we don't pull them out. But he was worth mentioning, I thought, because he's like an English romantic painter
Yeah.
and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
so,
All right.
So, anyway,
Should we talk about support?
let's talk about support.
Because we're going to read a passage from our support book, right?
Yes.
All right. So why don't you bring that up? And I'm just going to fix one thing here that I know is going to bonk on me. But
So, what's our subscription goal?
our subscription goal is 25. Now, for those of you who are religiously and regularly subscribing to us, we love and appreciate you. Unfortunately, that subscription goal ticker does not go up unless you're a new subscriber.
Yeah.
So I know that every time I put this plug out there saying we're going to give away this book, people are like, oh, let me renew my subscription. Boom. Thank you. But it doesn't tick that up. And it should. It should. But anyway, it is what it is. Now, you were going to read something from this, right?
Well, I was. So, it's called The Secret Lives of Color. It's by Akasha St. Clair. And I thought an appropriate color for this week was fluorescent pink, especially looking at all those landscapes and you saw all that
Yeah, the Michelle
explosion of
Mackey
spring
paintings.
colors, and fluorescent pink seemed to be the thing of it. And plus, it starts off as on April 21st, 1978, and I was like, oh,
That's tomorrow.
that's tomorrow. So I thought this was the perfect color. So fluorescent pink, nice and juicy. On April 21st, 1978, the British punk band X-Ray Specs released 15,000 limited edition copies of their new single, The Day the World Turned Dayglow, on pumpkin orange 7-inch vinyl.
Nice.
On the cover, a globe roughly colored in a mixture of yellow, red, and poison bright pink stands against a lime background.
Ooh.
The song's lyrics, almost incomprehensible, and lead singer Polly Styrene's screeching yowl, bemoan the world's seeping artificiality. Fluorescent colors were a hot new thing in the 1970s. Amped up versions of the bright colors beloved by advertisers and pop artists in the 1960s. In 1972, Crayola introduced a special edition box of 8 fluorescent crayons.
I remember that.
Yeah, including the ultra pink and hot magenta colors, all of which glowed brightly under a black light. The strident brashness of super bright colors perfectly suited the aesthetic of the emerging punk movement, too. Highly saturated fluorescent-style pinks were used to paint mohawks in the lettering of many classic punk albums of the era. Like the pink and yellow sign of the Sex Pistols' Nevermind the Bollocks album designed by Jamie Reed in 1977. It goes on, but that's the fantastic nature of this book that I'm enticing you.
Every color has a story.
Every color has a story.
And that brought me back to, between the Sex Pistols album and polystyrene and the Dayglow colors of the Crayola crayons, the first thing I'm thinking of is, God, every time you went into a mall and you saw Spencer's Gifts or Spencer Gifts, you just, as a little kid, I was like, everything was that Dayglow, they had all that Dayglow stuff and the black lights, and I was like, I want my whole world to be like this.
Yes, that was like super hot.
So cool.
Yeah.
So awesome. Thank you for that. So if we get to 25 subscribers,
You get a copy.
You get a copy of that book. And I just learned some intel. That it's entirely possible. We will have a new incentive. I'm not going to mention what it is, but there might be a new incentive coming that I think if we show that off, if that happens, we're hoping that happens. If that happens and we show that off, it's going to be amazing. So Christina's here. Hi, Christina. Nice to see you. Finally here. Memory Vessel says, Terri, I hope Todd is using a coaster. No.
No.
Sorry. But my glass is dry.
Oh, yeah, it's dry.
It is an
old,
oak mission desk.
Old bar.
It's a bar.
It's an old
Of course
bar.
I can put my beer on the bar.
So yeah, it's a bar.
All right, so it's 8:21. We got a lot of images to show tonight.
We do have a lot of images to show.
Cool. Well, let's pull that up. And do you know what I noticed?
What?
Something about the bar is very quiet tonight. I realized that I didn't turn the sound on.
Oh.
I don't think they can hear me right now because this mic isn't very good.
Okay.
I don't think they can hear what I'm saying.
Uh-huh.
All right, moving on. Let's move on to our artists tonight and have a look at, wow, that wasn't supposed to happen. That's really not cool. All those things just came flying in there. Always a technological fun time here on the show. Tonight, we have Alice Neel.
Alice Neel.
Which we are really, really excited to show you.
Yes.
So, do you want to tell us a little bit about her?
I can.
Start us off?
The reason why we're covering her tonight is that there's a huge show at the Met right now. And it's one of the first major retrospectives. They're saying in about 2 decades of her work over at the Met. It's called People Come First. It started March 22nd. It's up until August 1st, 2021. So we felt it was a very relevant time to go over her work and talk about her.
Agreed. I agree.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of good pictures of her to start us off because I just kind of wanted to let everybody see who Alice Neel was. And I love some of these pictures of her and this progression of her. But I just want to kind of plug through a couple of these. This one I love because it gives a real sense of the scale of her work, right? Her portraits had just slightly larger than life.
Slightly larger than life.
Sometimes, not always, but sometimes. And so, I thought this was appropriate. And then, of course, this one here, you get another sense of that. And I love her look right here. She's just hanging out with these guys.
Yeah.
So
she had a pretty juicy life, a very long, juicy life. Yes.
You want to tell us about it?
Well, I can start. She was born in 1900. That's a year that you could easily remember. And she was born in Pennsylvania, hence our beverage of choice tonight. She was raised by a pretty straight-laced family with several siblings, and women at the time, there weren't a lot of opportunities or expectations set upon them in terms of education, career, enterprise, or anything like that. So she was born during a time when the parents were just hopeful that she'd get married and call it a day.
Right, right, absolutely. I have a lot of images to scroll through, so I might just kind of keep everybody interested in what we're seeing. But we're looking at some of her paintings right now as Terri kind of talks a little bit about her life.
Yeah, so she painted a mix. She painted everyday people. She painted her friends. She painted other artists. She painted poets. She painted people in the street. She painted
her family members.
A
lot of her family members.
Her lovers, her children, the children down the streets. There were celebrities. There were lots of notable personalities.
Yeah.
I think I went to a retrospective of hers about 20 years ago in Philadelphia. That was my first exposure to Alice Neel in the flesh. And then about 10 years ago in Houston, she also had a semi-retrospective. It didn't encompass anything beyond the portraits because she does have still lifes and landscapes as well, although she's mostly known for her portraiture.
So, one thing I want to point out right now that I think is actually really, really important when we're considering her work is that she was born in 1900, okay, number one. She died in 1984. So try and just for a moment envision the art movements between those two brackets of time, right? Nowhere in Alice Neel's work do we see a hint of abstract expressionism, surrealism, any of the, cubism. She was probably a little bit too young to sort of be in the cubist movement at that time. She would have been painting around the time she was like 12 to 15 years old, which she wasn't. But my point here is that the various movements of the time did not affect her. She painted what she wanted to paint.
She painted what she wanted to paint.
And I think that's brilliant.
And she painted at all intervals of her life, even the most trying.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Yeah. I Hate Username 67 says the portrait of Warhol is a masterpiece, and you'll be happy to know that it is in the slideshow.
It is included, and it has quite a story. Actually, I have a little blurb here I have the catalog back from the retrospective I went to about 20 years ago, and there's a blurb in here about the Warhol piece that I was going to cover as well. But just going through some of her portraits here, use of line and color helps with the psychological perspective. They're saying she really got very intimate and personal with her subjects, and she often depicted vulnerability.
Yeah, just for a frame of reference, this is Meyer Shapiro. This was painted in 1968. And so she was already, close to 70 years old when she painted this painting. And, some of the earlier works, you're going to see some landscapes, you're going to see some, cityscapes, you're going to see that have a very different feeling to them. And I didn't want to put these in chronological order because I really just kind of wanted to do a larger survey of the work rather than always going from day one to the end.
Sure.
So it says, I Hate Username 67 says there is a great, fairly recent biography of her that is a great read for anyone interested. Oh, that's awesome. Do you know the name of it, or is it just Alice Neel? Can you let us know? So anyway, this work kind of bounces around the time frame a little bit, so just be prepared for that. I love this one. I feel like there's just this, just from, it is Alice Neel. Okay, cool. This painting to me is sort of it sort of has all the hallmarks that I look for in her work when I look at the work of hers that I love. There is this very, very odd sense of foreshortening that both happens and doesn't happen in this work. Like if you look at the fingers of his left hand, that hand just really comes forward, right? Almost in a really unnatural way. Certainly an unnatural enough way to relate to the shoulder above it. But then look at his knees. His knees are perspectival almost in the wrong direction, right? And so what I love about that is there's this kind of genuine, authentic approach that she takes to her work. Also, look at the way the chair wraps around him.
Yeah.
Right? So I think she was so much more interested in the personality of the people and really conveying that vulnerability that you mentioned than necessarily about depicting an exactitude in these things, which of course, that's what we want. I wouldn't want to see these painted exactly as we saw them.
Right. Well, I think her perspective is very unique, and I was actually thinking of her use of line on my drive into work this morning, because it was funny. We were looking at a painting, and I think it was the rubber plant painting, and you had talked about her legs and the unusual angle and the curvature of them, and she often curves limbs in places that shouldn't be curved,
right,
and such like that. So, it was and I think that part of that comes from when you're painting a portrait, and we don't see this a whole lot today. A lot of people paint from pictures, unless you're going to art school or you're a serious painter or stuff, but there's a lot of like amateur painters that paint from pictures. There's a fluidity in the person when the, I don't know how to say this correctly, but that line being curved like that, it gives you that sensation that they're going to get up and move.
Right.
Like they're moving.
Right. No.
And it's hard to capture.
Agreed. And also there's probably a relationship between someone sitting and someone standing.
Yes.
Because Alice Neel's standing.
Yes.
And so that viewpoint from, the normal standing viewpoint down on a person, it's hard to capture that. And so, I Hate Username 67 is saying, very unusual title for that book. It's subtitled The Art of Not Sitting Pretty, which, I think is really quite cool. Ben says, I like his right hand. Yeah, his right hand is also really, really interesting. The way that kind of like just kind of slides off the chair. The art of not sitting pretty.
You know what? That's almost like a tarot card there too. It looks like the magician's stance, where the one's pointing up and the other's pointing
up
down.
and,
but
up and
I'm
down.
just gonna go away from that.
Well,
for a moment.
I can think it's cool to speculate on that.
That's my weird
That's kinda
showing
fun.
through. Okay.
All right, so let's keep going here.
Is this her son?
I believe this is Hartley.
Yes.
Yeah,
She paints him a number of times.
Yeah.
He was a major subject of hers.
And we're going to see a film in a little while that Hartley made of her painting, which is it's only 2 minutes long, but we actually get to see her painting a portrait. There's no sound, but it's beautiful to actually see her just kind of attack that canvas. So, so that's Hartley. So there's one, was this the one I was talking about with the awkwardness to the curve in the leg?
Yes, on the lower leg there, how the leg is crossing over the knee. You were like, oh, look at how this line is on the underside. But I'm like, to me, that almost looks like the knee is jutting in, but there's also that sense of she's going to move, and the baby moves a lot too. It's probably a very squirmy thing, and she's just kind of trying to hold on. So I was thinking about that.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I think that what for all the awkwardness we could talk about her, the way in which she depicted bodies and perspective. One thing she consistently sort of always conveys is this locked vision with the viewer.
Yeah,
right. In every one
intense.
of her portraits, almost every one of her portraits, there's like this gaze right at you. Look at the baby looking directly at us. I mean, and she got that very early on, meaning when she establishes the gesture of the painting, she locks in those eyes very early in the piece. So I just find that's kind of cool to me, that she's kind of like connecting you in that way. It's a very confrontational approach. So let's keep going. So this one is called Two Girls in Harlem.
Yeah.
And she lived up in that area, correct?
She lived in Harlem for 25 years, I think.
Yeah.
And she liked to paint people that she just met in the neighborhood. These were two of the little girls that lived in the neighborhood, and she painted their portrait.
Yeah, there's a lot of Harlem portraits that don't become available very often. They're held. I know that a lot of the Alice Neel collection is held by the Alice Neel estate, and it doesn't really get let out too often. Her website is an interesting website, too.
Yeah, I like her website quite a bit.
It's very uncommercial, and it's kind of just... go check out her website at some point, Alice Neel's website. Google that.
aliceneel.com.
Yeah, it's not an artist website like you would expect. So... all right, let's keep going.
Yeah.
This is the girl with the rubber tree.
This is not the one I was thinking, though.
Oh.
So, because that one has the...
This is a girl with a rubber tree.
This is another girl. This is some other girl with a rubber tree. This is not the girl, yes. But, yeah.
Well, Ben saying that is so well done. And what I like about hearing a comment like that on paintings like this is I think there are other ways in which a painter makes the paint work than just that way in which we see something representational, right? So she's able to pull these other aspects of, their psychology out of this, right? The ways in which she combines colors. Body language. Yeah, absolutely. There's a few in here that have body language that are just a little bit uncomfortable. I love the combination of purple, green, orange, and the way that sort of holds that chair aloft.
The flesh tones, too. It's almost always outlined in this blue underpainting or outline with the oranges and the peaches for the flesh. And sometimes there's that little reflection of green off of it.
Yeah, that yellow-green cast
going on. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like Alice Neel had a really rough life. I mean, if we start to talk about...
She has a fantastic life. And I don't mean fantastic like everything was hunky-dory. It was really off the beaten path. So in 1918, she graduates from high school. She takes the civil service exam. She gets a high-paying job in a clerical position as a secretary. She does that to help support her family. In the meantime, she starts taking art classes at night in Philadelphia. She decides to go to the Philadelphia School of Design for Women, which is now known as Moore College of Art and Design. She graduates in 1925. She chose the all-women's college because she didn't want to be distracted by men. Which is funny because the rest of her life she's distracted by men. So a little bit, right? So she has a whole series of relationships. 1924, she meets Carlos Enriquez. That's her first husband. He's Cuban. He's also a painter. He actually comes from upper class society. And they fall in love and they get married. And it's a bit of a whirlwind. He takes her to Havana. They live together. They have a baby. The baby dies of diphtheria a year later.
Right.
So, and then they keep, from what I'm understanding, her first solo exhibit was actually in Cuba during this time period. There's not a lot of records about it. There's no documentation, but that was where she had her first show. She also showed with him in an exhibit as well. They moved back to the States. They have another daughter, Isabella. And at some point, the relationship kind of turns a little bit, and he takes the baby
He takes
away
the baby and flees to Cuba.
to Cuba, which is hard for me to completely understand. But so she is left on her own, and she goes a little crazy. She's lonely. She misses them. Her child's away. Her husband's away. And then for a whole year, she is in a sanatorium.
Right. So I'm still waiting for that part that says she had this fantastic life.
When I'm saying fantastic, I mean unbelievable.
Oh, okay.
And this is just we've just skimmed the surface. This is like early 1930s. She lived to 1984.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a portrait of Stephen Shepard, by the way. I'm just kind of still scrolling while you're telling these stories.
Oh.
So keep going, because I want to know more about this.
Do you want to know more
Can you give us more about? There's another portrait of Hartley.
Yes, I love the expression on Hartley's face because he always is like, "Come on, Mom." You know, there's always that feeling with those expressions. He's got like this, almost like a coldness to him, but.
Jess Park says, for stylized portraits, they really do seem to evoke such real people and personalities. Yeah, that's a brilliant point, actually, is there's a realness to their presence. And when you stand in front of them, you get that even more so.
You do, and especially the scale because, like you said, they are a little bit larger than life. So you are really confronted with this personality when you're standing before the works.
Yeah, but there's also this weird kind of flatness to it, right? That, you know, it's this struggle between flatness and dimensionality, that foreshortened struggle. And so there's this kind of vulnerability I feel like I sense when I look at one of these pieces that, you know, there's a kind of, especially this, right? I mean, arms up over the head. He's kind of like.
That look like, you know, I don't know. I've seen that look before.
Yeah, and Ben's like that white T-shirt looks so real. Exactly, Ben, but then that background just looks so forgotten.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's this kind of like this play between these. Not forgotten. It's handled.
Yeah.
And I think it's handled in the best, you know, like less, you know, I don't think it needs to be overdone, right? I like the kind of way he floats in that space. So it's a good balance between those two. So she's in a sanatorium.
She's in a sanatorium.
But she winds up leaving there, and she marries again.
She does. Well, she winds up leaving. She's only there for a year. Throughout the whole time, she is still painting.
Right.
So I will say that. She doesn't stop painting. She does move out, and she's in New York. It's the Depression era, so she actually gets a job with the Works Progress Association, the WPA, which was actually part of the New Deal. It was this effort to employ the unemployed. And they had multiple programs for artists in many different areas. They had the Federal Art Project, they had the Federal Music Project, the Writers Project. So she becomes employed through this. And then she starts exploring some other themes in her paintings too. Like she becomes, like the sexuality is still there in her painting. She does not shy away from that at all. And everyday people, and especially the neighbors and the children, that's really when she starts doing those paintings.
Right, but you know, one of the things that she's most, I think, I find most interestingly known for is that she's painting clothed people. Back then, when you were painting figuratively, you were almost always working with the nude. It just seemed to be a staple across the board.
She does work with nudes, and especially pregnant women.
No, she does.
Yeah.
But she does, once again, she doesn't fall victim to what is necessarily what you're supposed to do, right? And so when she does start working with nudes, she's working with pregnant women. And
she is.
So pregnant women as subject matter was not something that was common then, and especially not nude pregnant women. And so that's something I think that is
Yeah, and I think she really
impressive.
empowered women when she painted them, because she, a lot of the paintings of women during the time, they fell subject to the subject fell subject to the male gaze. It
Yeah.
seemed like
Yeah.
that's what they were painted for, and her women were not like that at all. She didn't depict them as this fantasy. She
Right.
depicted them in reality, and actually the perspective that she took from like looking down at these what we think are odd angles really helped that portrayal.
Well, it also empowered her.
Yeah,
because she was above them.
Because she was above them.
Pumpkin Audrey just mentioned the toe sticking out through the pantyhose, so I had to back up to this slide because I wanted to see that. That's
dang.
perfect. I love that.
Nice detail.
Right?
Yes.
So in this one,
Yes.
which I really wanted to talk to, this is called Jeffrey Hendrix and Brian, 1978.
Oil on canvas.
I have seen this painting before, right? And I did not know the title of this painting. And the man on the right in this painting with the bearded face and the glasses is Jeffrey Hendrix. And he was my painting teacher in undergraduate.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah, I almost fell over when I saw that.
Wild.
I couldn't believe this.
Huh.
And then I realized, well, of course, because, so Jeffrey Hendrix was a Fluxus artist. And he also did painting, but he also did a lot of performance. So Jeffrey Hendrix could often be found in a gallery, either sleeping, because he would do performance pieces on sleeping in galleries, or standing on his head, because he did a lot of that also. You always knew the students that were in Jeffrey Hendrix's painting classes because the portraits that would all come out of his class were of Jeffrey sleeping.
Oh.
So he would set himself up on the model stand with a lot of
boy.
pillows
Okay.
and go to sleep for a 6-hour class, and the students would paint him. That was class with Jeffrey Hendrix.
Kind of.
However,
Ingenious.
if you don't think you know his work, Jeffrey Hendrix's work, you might, because if you know John Lennon's album Imagine, the album cover is a cloud. Jeffrey Hendrix painted that cloud.
Oh, okay.
So that's, and when I saw that this was him here, I was just like, oh, and I have a feeling he had his apartment was on, it was just above Tribeca. So it was between Soho and Tribeca. And I have a feeling that Alice Neel and Jeffrey Hendrix lived close by to one another. But anyway,
Yeah.
I had to tell that story because I
Yeah.
was like, oh my God, that's my teacher.
Oh, wow.
So for what it's worth.
Yeah.
Moving on, and
Oh,
I Hate Username 67 mentioned this portrait earlier, the one of Andy
This
Warhol.
is Andy Warhol. And it was interesting, you were talking about the gaze
Yes.
with most of the subjects. This is one of the rare ones where the subject actually has the eyes closed.
Yeah.
And we had mentioned this like on an earlier episode, and I have to admit I was wrong. This was after he was shot.
Right.
When he was healing from those post-operative scars.
Right. Which
and-
ultimately, this is what he died from, right?
Ultimately, he had a lot of gastrointestinal and other kinds of complications following this and surgeries. And eventually he went in for his gallbladder surgery and he died thereafter. But this was the beginning of it. And when he went into Alice Neel's studio, the story goes that he took off his shirt and he still had his supportive brace on and his incisions, and he just had a seat and
Memory vessels
Is
thrown
that-
out there. She's like teaching with a question mark because that's, I think she's referring to nap time.
yeah.
I mean, the guy was famous. So,
Yeah.
you
Yeah, he was famous.
this is how.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go into that academic rant. I'm not going to do it. No one's going to suck me into an academic rant right now.
Yeah.
If you want an academic rant, I Hate Username 67 is in the chat. Troll him about academia. He will be brilliant to talk to in that regard. I promise you.
Yeah. I actually have a little blurb to read about the Andy Warhol portrait that was in her retrospective catalog from a couple years ago.
Oh yeah, pull that
And
up.
it says, the most riveting portrait that Neel would paint of anyone in the art world was, ironically, of Andy Warhol, who arranged to sit for her in 1970. The factory days were long over in the wake of Valerie Solanas' attempt on his life, but Warhol was still the most famous artist in America. And Neel knew it. She had some kind words for him. As a person, Andy is very nice, but she also resented him enormously. As an art world personality, he represents a certain pollution of this era. I think he's the greatest advertiser living, not a great portrait painter. Nonetheless, what they created together is one of Neel's masterworks. It had to have been an act of incredible faith for Warhol, who was notoriously shy about his body, to have removed his shirt to reveal to her what it had become after he was shot. He was 30 years, Neel's junior, and still deeply attached to his own reclusive mother. In the garrulous, gossipy presence of Neel, he may well have found for a moment another mother to whom he could expose his vulnerability.
Wow.
Whether one knows the sitter is Warhol or not, the painting is painful to look at. Only Warhol's closed eyes give permission to linger on what one suspects he himself refused to see. Part of the painting's power is that Warhol is not only shutting us out, he is shutting himself in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that. And he did that a lot.
Yep.
You know, like I asked this as a trivia question on the other show, on the Sketchbook Sunday show, but it was about, there was an interview with Warhol where the only thing he did in the entire interview was shoot pictures of the person that was interviewing him. He didn't answer any of the questions. He was just completely shut off from the process, but at the same time kind of engaged in it in a really strange kind of way. And so I Hate Username 67 says, I don't know, Warhol's early illustration is so much like Alice Neel's portraits. They're both delicate and vulnerable.
They are.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Observation.
But I like to hear Alice Neel throwing shade about who's a good portrait painter and who's not, because that shows a real confidence in what she's doing at this point, which she should have,
true.
right?
Yeah.
But to knock Warhol that way, that's brilliant. I love that. All right, should we keep going?
Let's
I
keep
love
going.
this. I love this painting. I don't want to go away from this painting, but let's keep rolling. So there were certain Harlem portraits that I was totally unable to find the title on, but this is one of those Harlem portraits. I love this one for some of the articulation in the hands. This time, to me, still maintaining some of that elongation, but again, much more carefully handled in this case, right? And I feel like underneath that olive green jacket, you know, those hands and that look on his face as he looks back at her, you know, there's a seriousness in this. There's a, you know, the posture, the crossing of the legs, the slight cross of the arm over the body. You know, there's still this kind of like, you know, when you're being stared at for hours and someone's taking, you know, painting your portrait, there's a I don't know. There would have to be an insecurity there to some degree.
He looks like he's getting a little uncomfortable.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Or skeptical.
Maybe skeptical. A lot of people had a hard time seeing themselves painted the way Alice Neel portrayed them.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't like to be portrayed in that kind of either honest way, right? Or in some cases, they thought they looked ugly, right?
That's true.
But I believe that she was trying to capture them in the best way, you know, that she saw them, right? Moving on, some pregnant girls.
Yes. That was a common theme. She painted pregnant women in empowering ways. That gaze is meeting you head on. There is some body distortion, but the pregnant women are usually right in the foreground. Sometimes their partners are right behind them. And then this is just one of the examples.
I think I have another one. No, that's not another one. That's a chicken.
That's a chicken.
I love this painting.
I love the perspective on this.
Yeah, this is a beautiful painting to me. You know, it has this real kind of interesting point of view looking down on this. And again, it kind of, you know, reflects back on that whole downward looking angle.
Yeah.
You know, when we watch this video, you're going to get a sense of that as well, especially when you look at her subject sitting there in the should we watch that?
Yeah, we should.
You want to break up some of the monotony and watch a video?
Some of our talking.
I think this would be good. This is a short video. There's probably going to be a bloody YouTube ad at the beginning of it, but we'll just see if we can. Are we going to get an ad? No. Good.
And you said there's no sound.
There's no sound in this video, so don't worry if you don't hear it. Ooh, Gary's over on YouTube now. again, she's holding that long brush at the very end. So the control is
Really loose.
it's not minimized, but it's loose. Yeah. Look at she just holds it at the tip. See how she locks in that gaze early? She confronts the painting eye to eye with her subject, right? And
she is elevated there.
correct. And so I think that's definitely part of the reason for the way in which she sees those legs. Like, look at the way her legs, you can't quite see it here, but
I love those flesh tones.
yeah, a generous use of green in there. And that is all there is on that. But let's get rid of this. Hold on.
Hello, my name is Sarah van Dongen.
I know.
Hello. We're sorry, we're not going to stay with you. I feel so lucky to be able to see her paint. That's like,
Yeah,
I mean, that's fantastic stuff.
it is.
So what I can't help but think of is that I believe that's Olivia in the picture. The one, I believe Olivia is a granddaughter. I can't remember. Olivia is a common subject in her work. Whether or not it's her, the point is that she sits there for hours, and there is this very slow, connected not communication, but there's a slow connection that evolves and unfolds. They spend time together, right? And I think a lot must be discovered between, all of my experiences painting a live person were in school. And so you've got this model you don't know that you're not allowed to talk to, and you're certainly not allowed to go up and manipulate or touch or do anything with. So there is a complete disconnect between the painter and the subject. But I think in that situation, when you, have asked someone to come to your studio and sit, then there's a reason you ask that person, whether it's like Amy Sherrill, where she sees someone on the street and she's just like, I've got to paint that person. Or in this case, maybe Alice Neel is asking, a relative or a friend.
Well, yeah, and there were a couple of anecdotes where she would ask somebody, they might have been wearing something. I can't remember the name of the one woman, but she was wearing a fur coat, but it was like one of those scraggly 1970s fur coats, and she loved the texture paired with the woman's black hair.
Right.
And she had to paint her, so she invited her over to her studio and had her wear that coat. Like she had to paint her in that coat.
Yeah, so there's some kind of impetus for her to paint somebody, and then she spends hours with them. You know that it wasn't totally silent. She spent time getting to know that person, understanding maybe their vulnerabilities. And I feel like that has been lost. Yeah, Gary, that point about the way she holds that paintbrush, that's just a beautiful thing. And if you like that, you should see the way Henry Matisse painted later in life after he had been mostly crippled and in bed. He would still dress well, and he made these extensions for his brushes because he was bedridden and could only paint on stuff that was on the wall. And so his brushes were sometimes 6-7 feet long, which completely changed the way he could manipulate and control paint. It's really interesting to think about how the brush, as an extension of the appendage.
Yeah.
Did you hear what I just said? I hate username 67. I am working on editing your paper because I'm thinking about all that stuff you write about the extension of the appendage. Regardless, because we're not going to go into that whole subject, but it's a really interesting thing. So I feel like we've lost that connection. You were talking about painting from photos, and part of that is because that ability to just ask someone to sit for you, who's going to do that?
Yeah. Well, when Jerry Saltz and his wife saw the show, they were commenting on the emotion and the expression. That was one of the things that struck me, that you don't see this kind of emotion. I mean, you do. You see emotion in paintings, but there was something different from that time, and just from connecting with your subjects on that level.
Right, but if you get a photo from somebody now that you're going to use in a painting, you get a photo of somebody trying to look their best, because we completely pollute the digital universe with
That's
our
true.
idealized
And filters,
selves.
we filterize. And
Yeah, it's like
filterize. Is that
filterize.
a word?
That's a great word.
I filterized my
Yeah.
filterize.
But we spend our entire lives putting out there in the world this idealized version of ourselves. And this, to me, is such a much more real
Raw. Yeah.
look at a person.
Yeah,
And we don't get this anymore.
we don't.
We really don't get this anymore. This is, I'm trying to see which one this is. I believe his name is Benjamin. I'm trying to remember where we are in the order here. I don't think I wrote this one down.
There's quite a few that we didn't write down.
We've got some comments going on here. So Gary Palker saying, amazing. I hate username 67 says the check is in the mail. Amanda Toulon says, have you read the book where Giacometti's sisters write about sitters, write about what he was like in the studio during the sessions? No,
But I will.
but I'd like to know. It's called A Giacometti Portrait. I hate username 60. I wonder what Giacometti was like. I have to get that book. I'd be interested in finding out about that too.
Yes, I think so.
I mean, given Giacometti's portraits, sculptures, it'd be interesting to know, that's a real, that elongation, that the way in which he treated the figure. And I wonder what was going on with him. That's a good point.
Yeah, that's true. Well, the psychology of the painter really comes through in portraits too. When you're painting a portrait of somebody, you're not just painting a portrait of that person. You're painting a portrait of yourself.
Well,
because that comes through in the style.
I think that's true of any art, not just portraits, but of anything. There it is. Of course, I hate username 67. Could you have made a shorter name, please? I have to keep repeating supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I mean, my God. Sorry. Victoria. Yes, this is a portrait of Victoria, Alice Neel's granddaughter, with the cat. And the reason why I hate username 67 is pointing that out is because we both went to graduate school with Victoria. And she was quite a personality and currently paints and is I have not seen her in years, but a fantastic personality. And she was very proud of the fact that she was Alice Neel's granddaughter and should be.
Yeah, I
frankly.
would be very proud. I'm proud of my grandparents, right? Even though they aren't Alice Neel, but to have Alice Neel as a grandparent is pretty freaking cool.
Right.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first met her and she said that her name was Victoria Neel, I was like, oh my God, like Alice? And she was like, and I was like, whoa. So, I don't know, amongst the greats.
Yeah.
This one's called Elizabeth.
Elizabeth.
This was done in 1984, so this was done the year that Alice Neel died.
Yeah.
So you can see a real change at this point in the way she's, and again, I'm not going chronologically, so I have more paintings to show after this, but you can see that, Alice's work is sort of now being handled a little differently.
This almost feels like it's winding down. It doesn't feel, there's not as many reference points and stuff.
Yeah. So that was a really big bug. Wait a minute. Was that the last one I had?
Looks like it is.
No, it's not the last. Hold on a minute. We're back at the beginning of the order.
Wow.
I thought I had like 3 or 4 more. I know I have more.
That's okay.
Do you want me to go looking for them?
If you want to.
I can pull up more. I've got so many more. You have something?
No. I was going to say, or you can look at her website. Or check them out in person.
Oh, do you want to pull up?
Do you want up until August?
Do you want to pull up her
1st.
website? We could do that.
Now she doesn't have as many. She also has some watercolors up there and some drawings. So
Hold on,
I'm
I'll
just
get
kinda
that up for
skipping
everybody.
through. A lot of them,
Pronto.
which we've covered. There's a couple of extra ones, but the one I liked was not just one of her portraits. There was a painting called Loneliness in 1970, which is about 80 by 38 inches. That was a really good painting, and it kind of diverts from her portraiture, but it still has a lot of emotion in the representation of the chair.
Right. We can go to paintings. And does that link work? There we go. So we've seen almost all of these, but we could scroll a little further through. What I like about her site, this one, the Degenerate Madonna.
1930. This was around the time that her baby died.
Such a strange
portrait.
piece.
Yeah,
there's a lot going on in this one.
Yeah.
I feel like there's hints. I was talking to one of our viewers yesterday, and she had mentioned that she was thinking about Alice Neel and looked up Lucian Freud. And I think in that Degenerate Madonna, there's a little hint. I mean, I don't know if what year did that happen? Because that might have been.
That was 1930.
No, then that was too early for her.
Okay.
I might have been too early.
Okay.
I'm going to stumble over this one. I'm trying to make a relation there, but I'm going to mess that one up. I love this one.
Yeah. I like how the website does this automatically, that it zooms in on certain parts and it kind of...
Yeah, it's almost as if you're really there to kind of focus in and look at some of the textures in the paint.
And the brush strokes.
Yeah. So...
Yeah, and then this chair down here, that one's...
I know I had this one in the slideshow, so it must have just decided to leave. Cool. This one's called Loneliness. It's going to pan up. I should say pan down.
But yeah, Alice Neel.
Alice Neel. So she's got a retrospective at the Metropolitan Museum of Art right now through, what is the date of that? August
1st.
August 1st. You can go and see this work. So that is definitely something that I would go and check out. And what do we got lined up? Oh, we got One Good King just subscribed. That is awesome and gets us one tick closer to our goal. Thank you for that. We love that.
Yeah.
So let's see. Next week we've got Michelle Mackey. The week after that, do we want to announce that yet, or should we wait? Let's wait on that one.
Yeah, we can wait on that one.
We've got this. We've got great artists lined up for you all the way into June. We've got some really cool live artists coming on. We've got Michelle Mackey, of course. We've got Hunter Art Tour, of course. We've got a very cool sculptor duo coming in May.
Yes.
We've got an awesome painter from Tennessee coming in June. So I almost went this weekend. Amanda, I remember you saying that actually. So get out there. Let us know. Report back to us on the Alice Neel Show. And I'm out of beer. We need something to toast with.
Aw.
So, well, if you're watching right now, we would love it if you followed. It would be really nice to have you. Plus, whenever we go live, you get a notification that we're going live. So if there's something that comes up unexpectedly, or we have an opportunity to do a stream, and we can jump on, you would get notified that we were there. We love that you're here and that you're watching, but come along for the ride.
Yeah.
All right.
It's fun.
Amanda's like, will do. Good. We're looking forward to it. So in the meantime, I think it's time to put this show and Alice Neel to bed. I really enjoyed this one tonight.
I did too.
She's
I love
an amazing painter.
Yes.
Mom says, great show. Love her work. Yeah, thanks for coming. You hardly said anything tonight, Mom.
Great show.
Everybody's flying by now. John Park says, really enjoyed this. Thank you,
So
Carolyn.
we're shutting
Love you
down-
guys. Great show. Love you too,
shutting down the
Carolyn. Thank
bar.
you.
Yeah.
I hate username 67 says, bravo. Ben Hagenbush, take care. We love all you guys. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And we will talk to you next week quite a bit. You're going to be sick of seeing us
Yes.
by next Tuesday. So anyway, cheers.
Cheers.